this works. Next step.
Require HTTP and URL.
Are we going to use?
It's not going to use maybe FS only.
Yeah. Okay, so we're going to use FS, but I think you guys used it last week, right? To get the index.html, just FS. Okay, I always start my JavaScript files with use strict. Has Joost explained it, or has anyone explained it yet?
No.
So use strict is strict mode, or let's just go for that strict mode. So there are certain options in JavaScript, especially in the new version, which is called ES6. Yeah, so ECMAScript 2015 or ES6. And there are certain features. I'm not going to say which ones. Honestly, I don't even know, but I know that there's some things, for example, using let, I think, isn't used. Like there's a bunch of things that you cannot use outside of strict mode. I always just use strict mode, so that no other way. So let's start by requiring some dependencies. Var fs is and then okay. Do I have to do do I have to do this?
No, because FS is an integrated package.
Cool. So I'm going to require fs, or actually I usually use const. And then let's see if this works. Console log. How do I run this? Cool. Let me just run it side by side. So I'm gonna start NodeMon. This is something you guys could install if you want. You can do npm install -g, which stands for. Anybody know? So there's there's two ways of installing packages. One is locally. So packages can install locally, which means that they will end up in Node in the same directory in Node modules. Or you can say globally, which means it will be installed in your computer somewhere else in like a folder that you usually don't see or use if you're using it yourself. You may install NodeMon like this, and any package you can install, you can also install it globally. And the way it works is NodeJS. When, for example, we're going to say require and some name, Node is going to first look locally. If it has that, we'll use that one, and then it's going to look if it's also installed globally. What is the advantage of installing globally? Well, for example, we can, it's not always the case, but in this case we can call it by its name over the command line. So I'm going to say nodemon dot, or you can even leave it out, but nodemon dot. And basically what it does is every time I save this file, it's going to run node index.js again. It's going to just make development for us a little bit easier. So if I now press save, it will crash because this is all non-valid JavaScript. So yay. And then I remove it. Okay. So as a first thing, if you're building a command line interface, it's nice to know how to use it. For example, if I want to run node, I can type dash dash. Usually there's like a help, and you get some options. So in the case of node, these are the options we can use. So it says usage and exactly how to use it. So node, and then you give it an option, and then there's a list of options here. So we're making an application that, and of course other people need to be able to use that. So the step one that we're going to do is make a help function. And why do we start with that and not at the end? Because you might think, hey, we haven't built anything yet. Well, there's this there's this philosophy of how you should develop stuff. So it's always useful to, at least for yourself, first have an idea. What are my requirements? And what does that mean? So if I do this, what should happen? Like imagine I'm building a car, and my requirements is if I press the gas pedal, it should accelerate, and if I press the brake, it should. So what is the expected input and what is the expected output? And just like with cars, most of these things are standard. Like it's not like with some cars they swap the gas pedals, because that's a pretty. So you have many things are by convention, but other things are like all of these things are very specific to our car. For example, if you press that button, the roof will open or something. So all of the things that a user needs to know to interact with our thing, we're going to first make that into a help section. So how do we do that? So there's many ways of doing this, but at least if somebody types help, so our program, and as a first, just like we were saying here, node -- help, we're going to say node index.js and say help. So that's the way, because we're not going to make it sort of that you can say our program help. We're just gonna, this is just a node wave starting. So what we want to do is if we type node index.js help. In this case, it doesn't do anything, but if we're going to make it in such a way that returns, hey, this is how you can interact with our program. So how do we do that? So the first thing that we need to do is somehow get access to this part, which are the options. So in Node, this is done with, so const options is, does anybody know? So process is just like, for example, math. These are things that are native to JavaScript. So you've got things that are native and always there, like process and math. Then you have and console. You can see also my editor recognizes it. And then there are things that like fs, that are things that are always there, but you need to explicitly first require them. So process is, and there's this thing called argv. So let's take a look at the Node.js process. So I actually think that the Node.js documentation is quite like super useful. Process.argv. So process is this object, and argv is. So I'm going to say this. So the process is an object. What's argv then? Yeah, it's a function. It's a method of problem. It's a property of process and also a method. So returns an array containing the command line arguments passed when the node. The first element will be blah blah blah. The second element will be the path to the JavaScript file being executed. The remaining elements will be any additional command line arguments. All right, so that's what we want. We want
start at index 2.
Exactly. So let's just print that first. So I just want to copy that. So or actually, I said this is a function. This is not a function, by the way. This is just also an object. Yeah. So let's see if we run that one again. So the zeroth, so the zero-based thing is the path that Node is being executed from. So as you can see, I have Node installed on my computer. So that's the path where Node is installed. First argument is where the current application is being launched from. And if I do this, node index.js help, you can see that help becomes available here. let's see what like also out of my curiosity. Let's see if I run this, what happens. So we can see that argv is an array with 3 elements.
Yeah.
This is just the way the node works. Like we just have to remember this. So what we're gonna say is let's just make a const options is process.argv, and what I want to do is I just want to, like, for us to work with, this is just a frequently used way of doing this, is I want to use only the elements. If it's slice, like I have to always, I think it's slice. I only want to get those options that are actually passed by the users. I mean, we could also just work with process.argv, but this is just nicer. Okay. Let's see if we do some help me with something. So you see it splits it by the white space. Okay, so now we have a way to talk with it. Okay, so first thing that we want to do is make this help option so that if we run it like this, it will print something. So the console.log. So we have, in HTTP we have a HTTP request and a HTTP response. In our case, the command line input, so those options after the program are our request. And the way we're going to respond is via console.log, as we've been doing before. So what shall we do? So what's the first step to saying if the user asks for help, then we respond with?
How are we going to store the help text? In what struct?
That's a good question. A string,
array,
from a file. Does anybody have a preference? We can we're the programmers here. Any arguments for or against any of these? Anyone?
Maybe the professional way is an external file, but now the easiest is to add it inside.
It sounds like a perfect description of the option to make. Like, it will probably be better to put it in a file where people can, but for now we can also just put it in. Let's start with doing this, and if we feel that it's like growing out of control, that sort of super long string, then we will switch to making a separate file. Anyone against? No? Okay. So I suspect we're going to make a long string. So I'm also going to start by using these backticks. Have you guys seen those before?
Yeah.
Yeah? So we have.
Yeah, but here you can use new lines.
Exactly. So that's the description that I'm looking for. So basically, these backticks are ES6 features. So ES6 feature, and it allows for 2 useful things. One is I can do this. That's something that you cannot do with. So you see it prints it like that, but if I do this, you can also see my editor already is freaking out. See that it doesn't like the new line within there. So we would have to sort of escape or do a join, whatever. So so that's the usefulness of backticks. Another thing is that we can interpolate. So there's things that we were talking in. This is like that's in a. Before we were talking about like getting a template and stuff. So that's maybe less relevant. But in this case, we can, for example, say some var. And if I run this now, what do you guys think will happen?
Undefined.
Some bars
Not defined. So what happens if I do? If I do this, what will happen now?
is undefined.
Oh, I actually didn't know that. If you do cons, you must apply something to. Of course, because cons cannot be later, so it doesn't make sense otherwise. Or let's make it let. So in this case, it just says undefined or some val. Yeah. So that's small sidetrack into when to use backticks. And then, okay, so let's take another look at like how node help. So let's stick with some convention with the help. Because if I, for example, look at another, so ls help, what is it? So here you have, so okay, so whether it's ls dash help or ls or cd dash help, so you can always see that they're always, I know that this is not a valid option, but they're always saying something about usage. So let's stick to that convention and say, okay, we're going to say usage node index.js options, and I really like the way they structure it. So let's not reinvent the wheel here. Let's just copy the way they provide their help instructions. Options, and okay, so here comes what we have to do. So this is, so let's just see what happens if I okay, so we have our options. So what are the options that we're gonna provide our users with? So we're both writing the help page and thinking through our application now.
Yeah. Create a new task.
Yeah, so how do we let users do this? Anybody have an idea?
Create new task.
Yeah.
Like how to describe it for the user.
Yeah, so what's the interface that we're going to provide them? So the only method that we have is this process argv, which makes an array of like sliced stuff.
Write your task and press enter in the box.
Yes, but he's asking about the command that you will use. Add, for example, dash add.
Does that new?
So this is something that I would love to make as well because it looks pretty. So we can do it, the dash add. But in our case, because we just have the array, well, let's keep it dash. It just looks fun. But in our case, it doesn't make sense because we're just going to look at what's the position. In their case, the dash actually means something. Like they're gonna. But for now, we're just going to look at the position. So to make it clear, let's just remove it. Options add, and then adding
a task to the to-do list.
So I'm going to say your. So here comes an interesting point. So how do we want to let people put this in? We can do this between quotes, or just we'll take care of it. See, these are all just decisions that we have to make. For now, I'm just going to say add, and then your value sort of for replace. Creates a new to-do list. Okay. Anything else? What's the next option? So we can add list. Do we need an extra option then? Shadi?
Maybe because you have done. You have
But what list is? What are we doing now?
Okay, good question. Maybe you want to try to answer it yourself?
Like you are now describing the way how the program works.
Mm-hmm.
But you describe it
For the user.
for the new user.
but the user, you mean from the browser side or?
Command line.
Oh,
from
the
the
command line.
command line?
Okay, thank you for answering. This is a very good question. So something that we could do, like I could say git commit. Like I can put this on some git repo and you can pull that application and then run the application. So this is not something that communicates over HTTP. The only way you can communicate with this is if you have this index.js file. So we're gonna pretend we're gonna pretend that people will somehow install our application on their computer and then communicate with it.
And they communicate with it through the CLI.
Through the CLI, just like I'm saying, like now I'm communicating with Node, or I have Sublime and now I'm communicating with Sublime.
Okay.
And in our case, we're gonna say node index.js
Okay.
and communicate with this is our application. Is that clear? Yeah. So, and we want to make a to-do thing that you can do. So instead of node, we have a to-do app.
Okay. List would be the read all
Yeah.
values.
Display
Display.
that to do items. But display all items and that to do display.
What's next?
Mark as done, check, or complete.
Okay.
Would be the update the value.
Yeah, we can do that. So these are all decisions that we can make. I'm open for any way you want to do it. Maybe we want to, but for now, let's say we can do a done. Let's say done. Marks an item is done.
But it's not item, it's task. Should we only use item?
So we all to do items. Good point. Let's be consistent. If we have done, then we also need undone. Something like that. And then as the last one, and then I want to start with actually making this.
Maybe the description is better to say complete than done.
Delete, yeah. Delete item from the list.
What do you say?
In the description, mark a to do item as maybe complete or not complete.
See, you're already. This is the world of software development. It's sort of choosing language that everybody understands. Because now we have a word complete and a word done. That's sort of what's the difference between complete and done. Like in this case, it's clear, but then there are going to be many cases where sort of, are you talking? For example, a confusing thing like archived and deleted. Are those two things the same? Are you actually talking about the same thing, or it's very important? So let's to. I know this looks weird, but for now I prefer the consistency over the language.
Yeah, for the consistency, sometimes I do definition in the beginning.
Yeah, it can also be. Yeah.
I said, for example, complete is the same as done, as checked, as all.
So there's to these three items. There's something missing. Does anybody know already what that is, or otherwise what?
The item itself, the input. You have to pass an item.
Yeah.
Which item would you delete? Complete.
Cool. I really like that you guys don't know. You realize this. So for now, I'm going to say some reference. Okay, we're going to come back to that later. Somehow my item, but for now I just want to keep it like this. Okay, so so this is our help, but we said, but now this doesn't, like this will always do the console log. So how can we make this console log when the user types help?
When the user type help?
Yeah. So now I can do node index.js help. It will console log. Well, look at how professional that already looks. But if we do node index.js add my value, it will just keep doing the same thing. So
we can do if statement.
Yeah.
or switch because we have more than one option.
I really like your thinking. That's a really good. So switch. I'm gonna go for that one.
Switch options.
It should be process dot argv 2.
No, options. We already stripped, sliced
Yep.
the values options.
You're right. Like, we could keep using it, but in this case, we've already made our new array here.
Yeah, so options 0.
Beautiful. How do you write a switch statement again?
Case space the value.
What's our value?
Value
help or yeah, two column I don't know in English, I forget.
Semicolon?
Not a semicolon. It's
Double punt?
double. Yeah.
Colon.
Colon.
Column. Yeah. And so yeah, the console.
Could be basic.
So in this case, let's just wrap it in there. I want to show function show help, just for niceness sake. Like we could copy paste it in there, but then that switch statement is going to contain all of our crap. Yeah, I did some. Yeah. So show help, and then
we can add another case, or we have to add a default.
Okay, let's first do the default. How do we do that?
Default. The column.
Yeah.
And we write the statements that we want.
So in this case, I also.
We don't need a break.
So I think you might be right, but we can do something even better. I'll also just write default like this. Maybe you guys knew that about switch statement. We can also say, you can also give multiple cases.
Select this case the default case.
Yeah. So what am I saying? If. So this is the same thing. Like we get. Let's make it more complete like the other guys do it. We can also say default, and then say console.log invalid option. And then say show help. Maybe that's more complete. No break, you say?
No break.
Okay, could be the case. So if I do we haven't defined add yet, so it says invalid option or node index.js help. Cool. Yay. Okay, so we've already met our first requirement, which is, or actually we haven't written that yet. Option help shows this help message. So we already met our first requirement. Sorry, we forgot to put it in there. Yeah? All right, next thing.
Next thing is add.
Okay.
Function add.
We also have to decide the data structure that
Yep.
how we want to store that. Yes.
Cool, that's our next step, right? Add item.
You actually have to decide two things. You have to decide how you're going to store it internally in the program when it's running, and also how you're going to save it to persistent storage in between when the program's not running.
So let's first just pretend that we are not persisting the data, because that's our next. So let's just first do a add item. So let's say so I'm thinking, okay, we need. If I look at our requirements, we're going to pass as a. So how you call it is rest parameters. So you have in many programming languages, this is a commonly used implementation. So you have like some, if you call something rest parameters, it means you have so many, like X amount can also be 0, X amount of parameters that are required. Like if you don't give that, then it will say invalid option. And then everything else is the rest parameters. In this case, we have, if you have a very long to-do item, you can have 10,000 rest parameters and only one set parameter. So let's first get all the rest parameters. And because we're going to need this in add, oh no, that is let to-do item is options. So how can we get
One.
1?
Why? No, 0.
Zero is the add.
Oh, so 0 is
Let's just first do console log options. Why is it saying not defined? Oh, that's weird. So we have add, and so now we come into the fun world of programming an API. What happens if somebody says add but doesn't give a to-do item? Do we add an empty item,
No.
or do we say screw you?
We say screw you.
Screw you? Okay. How do we say screw you?
Console.log. If the to-do item is empty,
So how do you do it? If
to-do item triple equal quotation empty, yeah. No, it's like empty. Yeah, that's it.
Is it empty or is it undefined?
I think it's
you have the answer right there, right?
yeah,
It's undefined.
undefined or equal null because the object is not set to anything.
What happens if let's say I have let r is item. What happens if I do r10?
Forget. I think it says undefined.
Is this equal to this?
No.
No or undefined? Hands in the air for undefined?
Error. I think it's
Error?
error.
Error, undefined. Who goes for null? Not sure. I don't think it's equal to. I'm not sure. Oh, I'm making a right. All right. Undefined wins. Yay. So both cases can be got by simply doing. So we're gonna either say undefined. So these situations that were before we've even made the main implementation yet. Like I just start coding the way I always start coding. I write the code in the order that I know it needs to be written, because the first thing that we need to do is the user meeting our expectations? And if they don't, this is called an edge case. So for example, what if somebody gives them their email address, but it doesn't look like an email address, like it doesn't have an @ or something. So these are called edge cases. So you have normal cases, and an edge case, which is sort of, it's not like completely wrong, but it needs to be, like we need to sort of say it's either on that side or on that side. So we need to say, okay, we accept it or we don't accept it. This is the most important, like I can guarantee you, except for knowing Node, this is the most, this makes you a developer, is going from basic requirements, because the first thing we thought is, oh, we have a to-do application. Next thing is, hey, we have CRUD. And the next thing is, okay, but then we have add with some options. But then what if they give no options or invalid options, or what if they do a delete on something that doesn't exist? Like, all of these things are edge cases. And the bottom line, and like, you should get a tattoo of this sentence, is your application should never break. So, for example, a syntax error is breaking. Or, in the world of HTTP, returning with a 500. Like, maybe you guys, have you just explained something about status code? Yeah, so if somehow your application needs to either elegantly, like in a sort of beautiful way, say, hey, you did something wrong, maybe try again, like, and your mistake is probably over there, and it should not say, I don't know what to do, try again. Never, ever, ever. Like in the world of programming, like when you progress, you will start writing automated tests. So you have because so many of these things, like for example the endpoints, the CRUD, are so repetitive that you start making like automated tests. Sort of throw like a standard 10 things, like for example 5 data types and undefined, null, not defined. You can't pass it, but so if you throw stuff at it, and it should always say, you're wrong, but you're never but the application can never be wrong. So that's why we start by making those checks at the beginning. We don't do that sort of at the end, like before we're going to do anything with our code, because I know that when we're going to write this, we're going to get references. Like we're going to say, okay, to do item the 5th position or something, like whatever. Like we're going to write code that assumes a valid action was performed. And first we need to say, if anything else but that valid action was given, screw you. So and then so one thing is missing here. Anybody? So yeah, okay. Else is a good suggestion. I'm going to suggest another option. Maybe someone else.
But here it's an add item function, but you didn't add anything.
Yeah. So let's pretend that this is the add the add something. So you're right. We can either say this. Oops. And execute the main action. Okay. And then what happens? It's just out of curiosity. I don't know if for sure, but what if we do, for example, this? Oh, it doesn't. So Node takes care of us. Sort of white spaces don't count. But for example, maybe in the future we want to do something like this. Like for now, we're going to add this as a to-do action, but maybe we want to remove it. So the if-else is great. Just how I really love coding is because the else is sort of, you're already in a sort of deep into some logic, and I like just having a logic block and then execute the rest. So I just usually do return. Return means stop any further execution, and in this case it's going to, the function, actually when you run it, it has a return value of, when I do in JavaScript, in Java and stuff, they have this much more explicit, because function always returns a certain type, but we don't have it. But if I say function my func, what's gonna happen when I run this file?
What do you have a boolean?
Programmer joke. What? What?
Boolean? I throw false.
So we're gonna get 2 lines, right? We're gonna have 2 console logs here. What's the first line? Okay, and what's the second type? What's the second line? So you will be right if I do this. Now it's referring to a function. When I'm doing this, it executes the function. Let's just see this in action. Oh, no, not index.js. Hello string. And now hello function, right? Because it's executing, and whatever has remained there gets passed to type of. Now what happens if I do this? And let's execute it again. Okay, so let's go for the first line. Who thinks true? Who thinks null? So 2 true. Who thinks null? Null. Who thinks?
I think no.
No. True. Null. Undefined. False. Error.
Well, it should return something.
Okay.
I know what I want to see.
Did you guys know?
Pretty sure I know. This is one of the things that's very programming language specific. So
Yeah,
this behaves differently in different programming languages.
So
So
in
this is a JavaScript specific question.
I want it to be 0.
0.
I want it to be
That's
0.
a bash thing. Exit
That's
code
a C
0.
thing.
Well,
That's a C
yeah,
thing.
exit code 0.
Which ultimately evolved into
So,
Java, which ultimately evolved into JavaScript.
In Java, you would write
No, I don't.
you would
find
write
that to be
void,
very-
which means
JavaScript is from.
yeah, which means nothing. And void means
It's definitely not 0.
like similar to the word avoid. Sort of, this is not a function that you should expect anything of. In our case, there's no such thing. There's this other implementation of TypeScript, which I and many other JavaScript developers are starting to use, in which case you can actually say void. And that makes, like, then you can sort of catch all of these annoying cases. So in this case, we're going to get undefined, and then the line below that, undefined with quotation mark. That's there is a difference between those, because the first thing is undefined, and the second one is a string.
So one of them is an undefined object, or an undefined
Yeah, it's an
reference,
object.
technically.
Yeah,
And the other one is the string
undefined.
of undefined.
Yay!
So here's what's
Programming
interesting.
fun.
Oh, you deleted it now.
Oh no, I can go back.
Do true or false comparison against the string return, and double equals versus triple equals. This is how you end up with bugs that are really hard to find.
Yeah.
So this is behavior that you shouldn't rely on, especially because it's different between programming languages.
Yeah.
So people who are used to one programming language will come to another, write something like this, think it's super clear, but it does something you don't expect.
So
Like
where
returning the string undefined instead of undefined instead of an actual undefined.
yeah, what do you wanna?
When you actually do the
Oh, right.
return
Wait, I
object
can
is
do
the string
this.
undefined, right? Yeah. So or even false
Wait, I think so.
equals
Is for example like
yeah.
this.
So that shows us what we already know. But now do double equals false.
Don't say anything.
True.
Maybe undefined is false.
Mm.
So it is false. False. Yeah, false.
But in, so for example, in
But-
PHP, which is almost exactly the same as this. Yeah, so
No, that's not the same actually, of course. But what is funny is, so what happens now?
can't see what character that is. Oh, it's null.
Right.
Yeah, so this is interesting. I think this is what I was thinking of.
Undefined.
Oh no, that's just something.
Undefined is false.
So let me show you. I know this is not really what we had in mind to do today, but what is this?
True.
Not false is true, right? If I do this,
False. False. False.
if I do this, I'm just kidding. You can go like that all day. But now you do the opposite. So that's what you're saying, is that that's weird. So the opposite of true is obviously false, and obviously false is true. But the opposite of undefined is not defined. It's true. And that's what the exclamation mark is weird, because it's sort of
Did you guys look at the difference between
Bang,
double
bang,
and
null.
triple equals?
what?
Bang
Yeah.
bang null. Console.log bang bang null. And there's a reason for this.
This?
Yeah. What do you think that is?
So I think not null is true, and this is false.
So
Yeah.
why would you ever do that?
To check if something is null is null-ish. No, it's exactly null because it needs to be. So
No.
It's you would almost have it as if you want something to be something like null, but not necessarily. Sorry, something like false, but not exactly false.
There's an even dirtier reason.
What's that?
It's an inline test for null. If you don't care if it's false or null,
Yeah, that's
and
what I
you
mean
want
by
to perform
false-ish.
something, but if the object isn't there, then you just want to skip the entire evaluation.
right.
So
If
do
it's value, then you can shortcut it. So it will
do-
save you.
bang bang null like that. Double equals 0. The reason we can't remember how to demonstrate this is because it's so tough to remember, and that's why people say always use triple
This is
equals.
going to be
False.
false.
True.
It'll be true.
True.
No, it's going to be false. Because the left one is true. We already saw that. Oh no, sorry.
It's going to be true.
It's going to be
false.
true. True is not equals to 0.
No, the
0
left
is
one's gonna be
false.
False equals false.
False equals 0, it's true.
False equals 0. So this is true. Did I say it's? What did I say?
This is why you always comment your code. When you do something like this, for whatever reason that you think everybody else understands, you will forget it 5 minutes from now.
Yeah.
I guarantee you. If I send you to the bathroom, you come back and I'm like, what does this do?
I don't know.
Again, we disagree. I think never comment your code. Just write your code
What?
differently.
Really?
Yeah.
No, I strongly disagree.
No. Just write your code in another way that makes it understandable.
So here's my vote is don't write comments that describe what it does. You write comments that describe why you did that. So for example, if I add a comment on line 6 and I just add the comment prints true, that actually doesn't help. That's not a helpful comment. Like that's not good for anybody. But if I write whatever. But if I write a comment like the return type could be either. I didn't see this. But if you say the return type could either be null or false and we're not sure, then that explains why you did that. Did it that way.
Okay. So this is just a funny sidebar, but like,
That's fun.
but so we're in the world of handling edge cases, and edge cases is all about sort of how do you get rid of everything but yours, and that undefined false, null, 0, empty string thing becomes very nasty, and after a while you just become much better at this, and this is super. I think it's pretty fun actually, but so we were running on Node index.js. So we have our Node index.js let's continue. So let's get to the real part that we actually want to do today. You see how programmers always love those kind of things. That's the sort of, you don't that's why it's fun, because you don't remember it and you have to reason about it every time, and that's fun. Nerd. So just to come back, this is how I like. Maybe like everybody does it differently, but the purpose is make sure that before assuming that there is a to-do item, let's make sure that everything's okay. Okay, so next thing. So first of all, I have an issue with this. Anybody know why? This could be fine if we have this works. Yeah, brush, but this is.
How about tool?
So if we run this, execute the main action. The item is.
Would be another? Just one.
Just the first. Okay, so how do we do this? And the answer is on line 4. And you need a little bit extra. You can use slice.
You need to get the last one.
From. Yeah, slice. We are on line 4.
From slice from 2-4.
-4. So that's so in that case we only have 2, 3, like only exactly three words. So we want the to-do item. What is the? Let me ask you this way. What is the end? What should be the end result of whatever we're going to do? A string containing the whole phrase.
Yeah.
Should you explicitly set in the options you should have your value inside the quotation or something?
We could try, but let's see what happens when we do this.
No.
Oh, forgive me.
Add.
I would say that's actually how you see most command line applications work.
Exactly.
They usually make, if you need to pass in a string that will contain white space, it has to be in.
Cool. So we can either go for tail slice, like we can either go for take the rest and take whatever comes after add and do a join, right? We remember JavaScript dot join, that becomes a join with white spaces again. But in this case, I also prefer, I think this is more beautiful. Yeah? If you want to go for join, that's fine. But then we need to update. What do you guys think? Is that clear? Like that?
I like the string with no brackets around it for required arguments. Brackets to me imply required arguments.
Okay, good.
Or optional arguments.
Yeah? We're good with this? Okay, so let's get to the actual juicy part, which is creating a data store. So
we need to know our
but actually, by going for our quotes, just now I think that by going for our quotes thing, I wonder what happened to our validation of no empty arguments, because what happens when we do this? Screw you. Nice. That's good. Sorry, just checking.
Also, check this. Do add the string 0. This is the kind of thing that you need to test for, right?
Like this?
Maybe, yeah.
0.
So
It's a string.
because it's a string 0, not
No.
0, 0, number 0. Okay, so now we get to another interesting part of edge casing.
Yeah.
Because
Is it a word or is it a number?
well, no, sorry. That's previous step. So next step is we're gonna store this in a file. Okay, let's first look at var. So how would you do this if we do the? So you can store data in very many ways, but in this case we make the separation between data that is stored during the lifetime of our application. So that means when we start running Node, it will create some value, it will exist, but as soon as Node terminates, all that is freed forever from, like, it's purged from memory. I can do this as an example, like how would we do it like that, but I guess that's super simple, right? You guys know that we just could do something like an array, and you push and you blah, blah, blah. In our case, so I'm just going to skip that example. We want to, but actually that's an example. Nice. So the end result is something we want an array of our items, but we want the array in a file. So, but now comes up something that's interesting, because Node, we start Node, and as you can see in the white bar in the middle, we don't have a file at this point that stores our stuff. So the question is, so that can break our system. Like, let's say if we do an add, and we just assume that the file is there, or dead, game over.
Application should check if there's a file or not when you start.
Right. So in our case, so we could do this for I'm just sorry, I'm making us a couple of steps ahead. We have add, we have update, we have delete, all of these things, and all of them are going to depend on that file being there. So rather than letting each separate operation take care of that, I would rather, regardless of what operation we're going to run, just at the beginning of the file, make sure that the file is there, and if it's not there, then create it. You guys agree?
Yeah.
So, so I want to say, regardless of, well, we could do it. Do we want to check file existence? Like, this really doesn't matter. We can do it here, or here, or here. You know, just before anything is executed. In our case, or we can even do it here. See, like, we can do it in very many places. You could wonder, like, if people just ask for help and there's nothing related to the file, should it also, like, so, but in our case, I just want to do it always. So even if a user asks for help and doesn't want to do anything, it will check for the file and otherwise create it. So we make another function, check file existence. By the way, if you guys disagree with any of this, feel free to interrupt. So we already have FS. You've already worked with it this week. So how do we? We're gonna. How can we check if the file exists? What do you got? I think my name, by the way, sucks a little bit to do file existence. This file is something that now makes sense, but what if we add a second file? Again, please. I heard something. I heard the right buzzword.
Try to read it.
Yeah.
So read file sync or read file.
Yeah.
So
And then how?
You have to get an if statement. Because if it is like
Let's first choose sync or async, because that also defines the way we're going to order the code.
for this situation, maybe they are the same because we don't want Node to do other things while we want to check for
Right.
file.
So if it doesn't matter, then I would go for
Read file.
sync.
Sync.
Sync, because the read file async will force us to write a callback function, and then I don't feel like doing that. I just really like to say let.
James mentioned that this week, if we have time, we can talk about async versus synchronicity. But in this case, imagine a situation where, for a small file, it can probably happen near instantaneously. But imagine if you have like 20 million to-do items. Now the rest of your program, if you have other things in program startup that depend on the file already being loaded, it's probably going to work for a very small file, but not for a very big file.
And then in 10 classes from now, we can also look at generator functions and stream the data to you. So while I'm writing this, like this is also just how I think, I'm also thinking, hey, so I'm getting the to-do file here. All the other functions also want to access that to-do file. So maybe, not sure, but I'm already thinking, hey, maybe we want to return that file so that other people don't have to write. That's the whole concept of dry. Have you heard about that? Do not repeat yourself. We're now going to read file sync. We don't want every function to have to get that file anymore. Maybe we can just check to-do file, but we can get to that after this. So to-do file is
FS.
like this, right? What are our arguments? Do you guys remember it, or do we like? I don't expect you to, because this is something like you can in 1 second be at the node documentation. But okay, so what shall we call our file? Dot. Yeah, let's call it. No, that's good. So now comes a choice of how we're going to store stuff.
Where?
So where we're going to just store it in the same folder. How?
Text.
So we can do it like this. I told you guys before, but but the difficulty is like, we need to think, how are we going to store things? Like think ahead. So if it's just a text file, then how can we separate different to-do items?
You can use comma delimited.
Comma delimited. So we can store a CSV. So if you look at in our repo for this week, you can also see that, like, we don't really care. You can use CSV, text, JSON. You can even, with text, you can use a new line as a separator. In our case, like, okay, let's just do a majority vote. We can just show we can do any way we want, except that JSON will have one example. Like, anybody for CSV with commas? CSV, text, text, JSON. Okay, we have 3 votes for JSON. That makes the majority. You guys have a preference for either?
The quick way to get it up and running is with a new line delimited text file.
Yeah.
Just a list, because then if the only property, so this comes back to thinking about entities. If the only property that your to-do item has is the string of the text of the to-do, then the simplest one is just a text file with a list of them. But if we want to start to have things like is completed, is not completed associated with an entity, then we need to have some other kind of data store that for a single entity can contain different attributes.
Yep.
So it depends whether should we do a quick prototype now with a text file, or should we build it properly?
I think we could just, for the ease of it, do both. Namely, go for CSV. I've never done anything with CSV. Is it also a new line character that defines?
No,
a new line character defines a new row. It's
in CSV exactly. So you have the commas for the properties.
Yeah. Yes.
And then
the order is
a new line.
Is a new row. It's basically, it makes a spreadsheet.
yeah.
Right?
So shall we just, for the fun of it, I've never done CSV. Let's just try CSV.
CSV is really good for. I've never done CSV in Node, but I'm sure there's a CSV parser module, but the CSVs are really often used at work for data interchange because it's a spreadsheet format. So people will take breaks. My first programming job was taking dumps of spreadsheets from one source and then sending them to another source. What's really good is you can write scripts that take a CSV, change some information about it, and then write it back out. So people love when you can automate things that would otherwise take them a really, really long time to do. So these are kind of like programming jobs at non-tech companies.
Yeah. And I just pulled up a project that I have on my machine for production. We had to we get our bank data in one format and we have to put it into another to match everything. And it's a Node.js project that takes in a CSV and spits out a CSV. So if you're doing anything in banking or anything in reporting, you're going to see it.
When we investigate security incidents at work, all of our logs come in CSVs. So we have to read the CSVs in and then parse through the logs to find the information.
Cool. So CSV sounds like something interesting. Like we've worked with JSON. Let's do CSV for the fun of it. And you had another word that I hadn't even thought of so far. Like I was thinking of, okay, we'll chop it up into commas ourselves. But then you said there's probably a CSV parser. Hey, that's a good idea. Maybe there's just like we don't even have to. Maybe we can just manipulate our JSON and then I don't know. Thanks.
The only problem with the CSV, and this is why it's mostly used for things like bank data, is because what if I want my to-do to say, well, can you think of a problem already with if we're using strings for to-do text and we're going to use comma-separated values?
Inside the to-do, inside the value itself.
Yeah, so if my to-do is brush teeth, comma, walk the dog, comma, eat breakfast, what's going to happen when I try and read it?
Yeah, but the CSVs, most of the CSVs parser recognize if you first value is text, they put it in quotation. So it's the delimited value is always after the string.
So it depends. We can choose right now. My preference would be to not allow commas and actually edit our help file saying you can also give multiple to-do items separated by a comma.
But it's just an interesting consideration. So when we make design decisions about how we're going to store things, it can have an implication on how the program actually works.
Yeah. See, so we choose for CSV, then we either have to be very careful and still trying to store like escaped commas or somehow. I don't know if that's possible, but there's probably some character to flunk a.
You can also redefine your delimiter.
Yeah.
So instead of a comma, you can use something bizarre like a pipe.
Yeah, I was going to say you can use pipe
or
or
a non-printable character, an emoji, whatever.
Cool.
That'd be fun. That's rocket ship.
CSV.
Tab is a common one. So sometimes CSV files will have tabs as the delimiters.
Yeah. So what's our? Do we need any additional?
Yeah, I recommend fast CSV, fast-CSV.
Okay, cool. So that's we can look at that. But for the read file sync, do we need any other inputs, parameters? Yeah. Set it. Console.log. So we don't have the file right now. So let's see if it breaks, or whether it says undefined or something. So it breaks. So how can we do this? Try catch? So this probably works for now for us now. I'm thinking, could there be other errors in the file not existent? Maybe somehow the encoding went wrong or something like and maybe the file is corrupt in some other way, so that the FS can have multiple, and then because what we're going to do now is potentially dangerous action, because so what we want to do is if it doesn't exist, create a new one, but maybe it exists but something is wrong with it and FS gets another error, boom, and we just override whatever is going to be there. Maybe there's a better way, but we're getting a little bit out of time, so I'm just gonna, it's already taken quite long, so I'm just gonna do it with a try catch, but I'm sure if we Google for safely checking if a file exists or not, we can do it another way. Or do you have a recommendation?
Error code. We can check the error code.
Yeah?
Error code, it is equal ENOENT. Means
well, that's even better. We don't even have to.
There's also just
Oh.
fs file exists.
Oh, right. Well, that's fast enough. So fs that file exists.
Sync. File exists.
Sync.
Deprecated. Yep. Path is the only option.
If What is, how do we write that? I actually I have to Google it. Create file sync. Let's just Google it.
Have you guys heard the joke, there are only two hard problems in computer science?
No.
It's they said there are only two hard problems in computer science: cache invalidation, which is a hard problem obviously, and naming things. Here's why naming things is a hard problem. So this is a really logical thing for us to do when writing this, but what's the name of the function?
File exists sign.
Check to do file exists. Check to do file existence. But what we're actually doing, so that's not an accurate name for what we're doing anymore, because what we're actually doing is creating it if it doesn't exist. So now the name of this function isn't applicable to what the function actually does anymore. So you would think that if I was reading somebody else's code, if I was reading somebody else's code and it said check to do file existence, I would assume that returns yes or no.
Sounds like this.
It's trying to add a not in front of it. Shouldn't it be without it? If fs dot file exists sync. Yeah.
Nice, thanks.
So
Okay.
it's not that easy. It's never that easy. It's not create file sync. It's you have to create a write string, create file write string.
All right.
But if you're writing it in a CSV, you can let the CSV library do that for you.
Oh yeah. Okay.
Usually I would see something like this just wrapped up with either when you're opening the file or something like this. But yes.
So this is not going to work because the create file sync file exists sync is not a function. Okay, let's go to NodeJS. Exists. Deprecated.
Just as an example of bad names, I was working on a project at work for an internal tool which just lists a bunch of things, and there's a we have an API for it, and there's a bunch of selectors, like when you're searching on Amazon or whatever, you can filter things out, and the API endpoint to filter things out is /manage. So when I'm reading through the code and I see /manage, I assume that means like I'm going to check, like this is for administration or something like that. So terrible name, product's already in use, can't change it anymore, too late. So forever, that's a bad name that we can't fix anymore.
Open sync.
Oh, that makes sense. So you declare the open.
You have to force a file to be empty when you want to.
Like the story of Google, they make the typo in the domain and then it's stuck forever.
Yeah. So what they're saying here, maybe we can even just say open sync and we don't even have to check if it exists. Because it will open it. Wait.
So if you open it with the A flag, it will append to anything that exists. If you open it with the W flag, it overwrites.
Yeah.
Like the bash thing.
So this is not exactly what I want for now. So this is, we could actually, I think there are better ways of getting this, but okay, boom. Let's just do this one.
So it's fs.write file.
I'll point out the reason that none of us know any of this stuff about files is because of databases.
Yeah.
Yeah, of course.
Files are hard.
Product placement. Is there I want to keep everything right. File sync. Yeah, I want to keep everything synced because otherwise we have to change everything.
Yeah. The other reason that none of us know about this or know by heart is because it's specifically in Node, it's hard. because of the way JavaScript does async. Whereas other programming languages that don't have the same kind of engine that does async, writing files is a bit easier. Because, like I mentioned, files can be really big, so things that take a long time cause problems when you have async.
So that works. So we just created a to-do file. But I already know that we're going to use your package because thinking about CSV need headers most of the time, right?
Doesn't have to. It's a flag.
Yeah, only if you want to parse it into an object or a hash as opposed to into an array.
We probably want.
Or if you want to kind of do your downstream consumers.
So return do we need to put in UTF? Yeah, thanks. Do we need to put in UTF-8 in the right file? Oh no, default. Nice. Where was I? Read file sync. Does that also take a?
Yeah, it has some encoding.
It needs an encoding, right? Why is the one default and the other not? That's UTF-8. So in both cases, so like I said before, get to-dos file. I'm going to change it again. Get to-dos file. Hartstikke.
This is what I was kind of thinking of before. This is generally you would have one function that gets the to-do file, and inside of it you kind of hide away all of the other stuff that you have to do in order to make that happen.
Yeah, so this looks like that's what you were talking about. Read file sneak. I guess you guys would laugh harder if you knew what the Dutch word snikkel means. So we have so we have it working. We have a get to-dos file. So as you can see, I changed the implementation a little bit. Remove it from here. Why? Because we need to call it anyway. Because we need to so we have one function that checks does it exist. If yes, just return it. If not, create it and then return it. Okay, so we now have a very nice reference to the file, so we can sort of do stuff with it. I think. I mean, I've not really worked with FS for a while, but I think this is. I never really know what I'm doing with a program. Sort of, I just have this image and it just evolves. Unless it's something you've done 100 times, but I haven't done this 100 times. So let's write to this to-do file. Can we now? So that's what I'm wondering actually about. So when we get the reference, do you guys know if we get the reference to the file?
The return from FS is. Do you remember when we did this last week?
That's how
It's just the contents.
So we have to write again to that.
Yeah. So if you want to write it out, so yeah, so exactly. Basically, it just dumps you a string, and then you have to manipulate the string and then write out the string.
So how can we to do item? So how can I append with a let's just start with, I think quickly, after this we're going to look at the CSV package and then I'm going to stop because then we're I've spent enough time. But how can we append to the right?
It's just string, so it's just string concatenation.
Yeah, so that's true. There's no append?
Well, no, because it's not a file object, it's just a string object.
true.
So you-
Can we skip that? Okay.
So you could do plus backslash n plus.
Yeah. Okay. So the question is, we're now going to write to the file. So I'm first just going to write it, and then I'll show you what's going wrong after a couple of times. So let's. So value is now something like this. So then we're going to write that to the file. Write file sync to do item, just as an example. Plus, so I'm just gonna add a new line or something. This is not what we're gonna use. I just want to show you as a random example. To do a file, of course, that hasn't. Let's see if that actually changed this. Yeah, so we just added some item. So you see, that worked. Now we're doing also brush teeth. And that changes the file.
Do you see the problem?
Override.
Yeah, it overwrites.
So we didn't actually add to it. We just replaced it.
So maybe there's this append thing, but for now, and afterwards we're going to look at the CSV option. That's even better. But for now, we can also just say that new file value is to do file plus dash n dash to do item, something like that. Cool. Except for this first guy over here, I'm pretty happy. So, like I said, I think we're going to use CSV because we want multiple properties. We want like a title, we want a, is it done or not? Maybe when was it created or when is it due? Like there's all these things for to-do items that we can add. Let's, because we've been going at this for 2 hours already. I think everybody's brain is getting pretty fried. So I think I'm going to at least pause here for a second and yeah, let's pause here.